Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're talking about something absolutely massive, how science fiction is literally becoming reality right before our eyes. We're zeroing in on the three major technologies that will change the future. And you really can't talk about this bioengineering revolution without talking about the king of biotech himself, MIT Professor Robert Langer. He's a total legend, effortlessly crossing between academia and industry, and he's been involved in founding over 40 biotech startups, including Moderna. But his career didn't start out glamorous at all. In fact, let's look at the number 40. Think about what that number means for a second. That is the exact number of hospitals and medical schools that completely ignored Robert Langer early in his career, despite him holding a chemical engineering PhD from MIT. His very first research proposal, rejected 9 times. His first patent application, turned down 5 times by reviewers who literally claimed he just didn't understand basic chemistry. So yeah, this genius engineer's career started out with just absolute crushing rejection. But he didn't let it stop him. He later said that the crushing failures and rejections of those early days built his resilience, teaching him to never be afraid to fail and to dream big. And those weren't just empty words. While he was working with the legendary surgeon Dr. Judah Folkman, Professor Langer kept quietly plugging away at this idea of macromolecule delivery using polymers. Now, at the time, academia openly mocked this. It was so bad that fellow scientists would actually get up and walk out of the room when he presented. But that brutal valley of death period, that was the exact crucible that forged his incredible philosophy on both science and business. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 5 key areas. First, Professor Langer's great failures. Second, the 3 major technologies. Third, platform companies driving innovation. Fourth, the perfect fusion of AI and bio. And finally, number 5, conditions for the next Langer. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, Professor Langer's great failures. He didn't just chalk up his painful history of rejection as some personal story of overcoming the odds. Instead, he used it to build a highly systematic blueprint for startups to actually survive.
We call this the Langer Protocol. The core idea here is incredibly clear, and it hinges on a strict division of labor. Langer firmly believes that it's rarely technical flaws that kill a startup. It's almost always a lack of business leadership. So, under his protocol, scientists stay in the lab focusing entirely on innovation, while trained business experts take the wheel on commercialization and management. It's all about surviving that valley of death. He also pushes hard for platform technologies. Think about it. If you're developing one single drug and it fails, your company's dead. But if you have a platform, like an mRNA delivery system, and one application doesn't work out, you just pivot to a completely different disease. It's a total game changer.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the 3 major technologies. We are moving way past just treating symptoms. We are now looking at the next big thing in biotech, and it's all about fundamental, functional cures. We're talking about 3 specific pillars here: regenerative medicine, cell therapy, and gene therapy. Now, these aren't just operating in silos. They organically merge and evolve together to create breakthroughs that honestly used to seem impossible. Let's start with regenerative medicine and a concept called organ on a chip. The impact of this is absolutely massive. Scientists are literally culturing human brain or liver cells on a microfluidic plastic chip that's just a few centimeters wide. It perfectly simulates how our actual organs function and metabolize. Because of this, we can drastically cut down on animal testing, which, let's face it, often has high failure rates because human biology is just different. This exponentially increases our success rate for predicting clinical outcomes and developing new drugs. Next up is cell therapy, and a major breakthrough here is immune shielding. Think of it like throwing a magic invisibility cloak over transplanted cells. Normally, when you transplant foreign cells into a body, the biggest hurdle is immune rejection. The body attacks it. But by encapsulating these therapeutic cells in specialized polymers, the body's immune system is completely blocked from attacking them. The best part? The life-saving medicines and nutrients can still pass right through the shield. It completely paves the way for functional cures without needing those harsh, terrible immunosuppressants.
And then we have gene therapy. For a long time, the biggest bottleneck here was delivery. How do you safely get good genetic material into the right cells? The answer is lipid nanoparticles, or LNP. Historically, we used viral vectors, but they had strict capacity limits and carried high risks of immune side effects. LNP completely bypasses that. With LNP technology, we can safely mass-produce gene therapies, give repeat doses, and accurately target organs way beyond just the liver, like the lungs or the brain. Fun fact, Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine was born directly out of this exact platform.
All right, moving to Section 3, platform companies driving innovation. These aren't just wild theories floating around a lab. Langer's lab operates almost like a massive startup incubator. With over 100 researchers, they are taking these raw concepts and spinning them into real, life-saving companies.
Let me give you a phenomenal real-world example of regenerative medicine in action, Humacyte. They've essentially automated a culturing system to mass-produce what they call HAVs, or human acellular vessels. Basically, they culture human cells, strip away anything that could cause an immune reaction, and what's left is a structural framework. These off-the-shelf, bioengineered blood vessels are literally being deployed right now in active conflict zones, like the war in Ukraine, where they are actively saving the limbs of soldiers with severe trauma. It is absolutely incredible.
Or let's look at the fierce race to cure type 1 diabetes. You have Vertex, whose approach has hit some clear roadblocks. They either have to rely on immunosuppressants or they deal with failed physical capsules. But then you have Sigilon. They use an affibromer technology built directly on Professor Langer's research. This tech actually prevents the surrounding tissue from hardening into fibrosis, allowing the therapeutic cells to survive long-term completely without immunosuppressants. It's incredibly elegant, and it perfectly explains why Sigilon has such a massive edge in the race to conquer diabetes.
I have to highlight one more mind-blowing breakthrough here, Titium. They work with biomimetic polymers. Imagine a biodegradable adhesive that activates when you shine a light on it. It allows surgeons to perform highly complex operations on delicate, wet tissues, like tiny blood vessels or peripheral nerves, that are basically impossible to stitch up with a needle, without using a single suture. It's just another astonishing innovation made possible by advanced biomaterials.
Now, Section 4, the perfect fusion of AI and bio. Let's cast our vision forward, looking at the window between 2025 and 2035. What happens when you take these deep tech breakthroughs and smash them together with the immense computational power of artificial intelligence?
Well, it's pretty wild. You're familiar with ChatGPT, right? It generates text. But in the biological world, we now have generative AIs like FrameDiff and Moderna's linear design. Instead of text, they generate entirely new protein structures and genetic sequences that literally do not exist in nature. Optimizing an mRNA sequence used to take years of trial and error. Today, AI does it in a few minutes. And those AI design sequences can actually boost antibody production by up to 128 times compared to traditional methods. We are talking about a massive evolutionary leap in speed and efficiency.
And the economic impact of this AI biofusion? It is staggering. The global cell and gene therapy market is projected to absolutely explode, jumping from about $37 billion in 2025 to a massive $250 billion by 2034. But that crazy compound annual growth rate isn't just about money. It represents a fundamental paradigm shift in how humanity is going to manage health, disease, and life itself.
Which brings us to our final point, Section 5, conditions for the next Langer. If we want to successfully ride this massive wave of innovation, what exactly does our scientific and economic ecosystem need to do to prepare?
Well, Professor Langer's blueprint requires structural changes that go way beyond just throwing government subsidies at a problem. It demands bold capital gains tax cuts to incentivize long-term private investment. It means implementing investment loss deductions so that risks are actually manageable, which completely opens the floodgates for private capital. And honestly, the most crucial step? We have to cultivate a culture that deeply celebrates failure. We need an environment where a failed startup isn't the end of a career, but is recognized as a stepping stone toward a much greater leap forward. Think about it. From organs on a chip, to immune shielding, to AI-designed proteins, the technology has already arrived in the future. The only urgent question left for us is this: are our institutions, our policies, and our systems actually ready to welcome this innovation?